Tam Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyanam Gunanavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Prapta Sakalyanam Gunanavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Bande Guru Charanaravrindam Bande Guru Shri Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingara Tanama Niramajanado Dana Nityanana Shingara Tanama Juktasya Bhaktamsya Neyunjatopi Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Juktasya Bhaktamsya Neyunjatopi Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satvana Truptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satvana Truptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Kridaiva Truptim Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Kridaiva Truptim Bhajato Shadeva Shiradikama Gavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Gavayara Para Madhura Lila Pratikshana Dhanalopasya Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Dhanalopasya Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Nekunja Yono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhiri Juktir Apekshaniya Nekunjayo Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhiri Juktir Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Bande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Ati Sakya dharitena samasta shastre uktas tatha bhavyataiva sadavi. Uktas tatha kintu prabhorja priya eva tasya vande gorashi charanara vrindam. Priya eva tasya vande gorashi yasya prasada bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi. Yasya prasadam bhagavat prasadam. Yasya prasadam nagati kutapi. Dhyayam subham tasya yashastrin sandhyam vande gurashi charanara vrindam. Dhyayam stubham stasya yashastin sandhyam. Dhyayam stubham tasya yashastin sandhyam vande gurashi charanara vrindam. Dhyayam stubham tasya yashastin sandhyam vande gurashi charanara. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachatadisha Tarine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatadishata. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Haribo Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hariyaraya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Hariyaraya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Gopal Govindaram Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Radha Nila Madhav. Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jayo Sitaram, 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 Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanande, Haribo. Jai Vishwapar Paramita Prabhajagacharya, Ashtuttara Sarasya Shimad, ISKCON Pratishtha Vividi Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Siramani. Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Data Patita Pavana, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadgoswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai, Ananta Kuru Vishnu Vrindi Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai, Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Jai Pramanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama, Shri Sachinandan Shman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari, Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai, Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai, Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Brihat Midanga 29th Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna, Gopagupna Radha Kund, Samakund, Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Brajapam Vrindavan Mathurudham Ki Jai, the Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai, Shri Shri Maya Purnavadip Ekachakra Dham Ki Jai, Jai Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai, Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu, Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanu Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai, Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Bolo Shrimati Radharani Ki Jai, Shamaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai, Nitai Gauri Pramanande. All glory to the assembly bodies, all glory to the assembly bodies, all glory to the assembly bodies, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasingaya.
Praladadayine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. silatangka nakalaye
silatangka
ito na simha para to na simha yato yato yamita to narsimha
jaya datta jato jamita to narsimha
bahir narsimha hrudaye narsimha narasimha madim sharanam prapadye tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanubringam keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jaya Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev. Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev, Jaya Narsimha Dev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya 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 Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitagara Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitagara Hari Bol, Nitagara Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitagara.
जय श्री श्री भक्ति पद सर्व विघ्न विनाशनाकनि सिंह भगवान की जय। जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की। गौर प्रेमानंदी। श्री वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदेवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदेवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदेवी शतवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ ऐ अभिलाषी।
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 जे तमारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूर्ण हो।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्हें कृपा कोरी करतारे वृंदावन वासी।
मोरा विलास कुंज दियो वा। नयने हरि बो सदा जुगल रूपरासी। ऐ निवेदन धरो सखीर अनुगत करो। सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी। बिना कृष्ण दास कोई ऐ जिना मोरा होए
बिना कृष्ण दास कोई ऐ ना मोरा
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदा ये न भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न भासी
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदा ये न भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न भासी
ज्ञानी कानी च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की
जय।
जय।
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Brinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I would always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower, carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpanamanjanam Bhavamada Vaninivapanam Shri Akariva Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Badu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivatanam Pratipadam Purna Mrita Swadanam Sarvatma Smanam Paramparam Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Ita drushitava kripaya bhagavan mamapi durdhaivam idrishamya janina nuraga trinadapi sunichaina tarorapi saishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sada hari na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagarisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatar bhakti raitu tvai ainandatanu karam paritamam vishame bhavam budau kripaya tava pad pankaja sthita dhuli sadrisham vichintaya nayanam galorashtrudharaya vadanam gadagarudaya gira pulakairin chitam vapu kada tava nama grahane bhavisyati juga itam nimishena chakyusha pravrisya itam shunya itam jagata sarvam govinda virahena me aslishva padaratam pinashtumam adarshnar marmahatam karotuva jata tathava vidadhatu lampatu mat pranatastu sa evana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki Jai Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Prachani Nivishesha Sundarbari Prasatari Satarani Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratveshe Namaha. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life for repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, Out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of the devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govind, feeling your separation, I am considering moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling old, vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so. Even if sunders him roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted but not be present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Kastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or the scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, which are Vedas and fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Kochi Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Guru Pranam Mangala Charan Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jotaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunata Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunnavadi Pachatare Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshavana Videvi Deitaya Kripabdvai Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhur Jojala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravane Shri Murthaye Rinatarine रूपनुग विरुद्धापो सिद्धांत दंतहारिणे नम गौर किशोराय सच्चवेरज्ञमूर्तये विप्रलंभार संबोधे परमभुजयते नमः नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानंदनामिने गौर शक्ति रूपनुग वरायते गौरविर्भाव भूमिस्वं निर्देश सा जनप्रिय वैष्णवो सर्वभौमा श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च परितनं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावरण्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः पंचतत्त्वमकं कृष्ण भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारो भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तिशक्तिकं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते जयतं सुरतोपाङ्गो माममन्दमतिर्गति मत्सर्वस्य पदम्बोजो राधामदनमोहनो दिव्यवृन्दरण्यकल्पद्रुमाधा स्मरनगार सिंहासनस्तु स्म राधा शिलगोविन्ददेवो पृष्ठलिभिः शैवमानुस्मरमि स्मरसरसरम्भि वंश्वाततस्थिता कर्षणवेणुसानर्गोपीर्गोपीनाथश्रियेस्तु न तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि वृषभानुसुते प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्री गुरु प्रणाम मंगल चरण की जय श्री ब्रह्म संगीत की जय ईश्वर परमा कृष्ण सच्चिद आनंद विग्रह अनादिरादिर गोविंद सर्वकारण कारणम चिंतामणि प्रकट सन्मसुकल्पवृक्ष लक्ष्य वितेश शुरभिरभिपालयन्तं लक्ष्मीशः शशत संभ्रम सेवमानं गोविंदम आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि वैनं क्वनन्तमरविन्ददयालतक्षं भारं बत समसितं बुधसुन्दराङ्गं कन्दार्पकोटिकमनीय विशेषशोभं गोविन्दम् आदिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आलोलचन्द्रकलसाद्वनमल्यवंशि रन्नाङ्गदं प्रणयकेलिकलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियताप्रकाशं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अङ्गानि यास्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति पन्ति कलयन्ति चिरञ्जगन्ति आनन्दचिन्मय सदुज्ज्वल विग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि अद्वैतमच्युतम् अनादिम् अनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभमदुर्लभम् आत्मभक्तो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि पन्तास्तु कोटिसर्वत्सलसम्प्रगाम्यो वायोरतापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवानं सोऽभ्यस्त्रिया प्रपदसिंह विचिन्त्य तत्त्वे गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि एकाप्यसो रचितुं जगदन्तकोटिं यक्षातिरस्ति जगदन्तचया जदन्त आदन्तरस्तपरमानुचयन्तरस्तं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यद्भावभावितयो मनुष्यस्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिमासनेहानुभूषा सुक्तर्यमेव निगमप्रतिष्ठितवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि आनन्दचिन्मयरसप्रतिभाविताभिस्ताभिर्य एव निजरूपतया कलाभिः गोलोक एव निवसत्यखिलात्मभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि प्रेमाञ्जनचरितभक्तिविलोचनेन सन्तस्तदेव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरमचिन्त्य गुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि रामादिमूर्तिषु कलानियमेन तिष्ठन् नानावतारमकरोत् भुवनेषु किन्तु कृष्णस्वयं समभवत् परमं पुमां यो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि यस्य प्रभावभवतो जगनन्दकोटि उच्चिष्वसे
Shesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Vinam Tad Brahma Niskalamanantam Shesha Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Jaigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vatayamanam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matayam Nasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upedya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Nijadamni Tale Chitasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute 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 Te Prabhavani Jaya Vitastayena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shististati Palaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Apyasta Chitesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakastayetu Yasam Bhutama Pitatasam Upaitikaya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Hita Santanam Abhyapetya Dipaya Te Vivitahetu Samanu Dharma Yastadvikeva Chirvishnu Dayavivati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Larna Vajale Bhajtisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagaranda Saroma Kupa Adhara Satyam Avalambya Parasmurte Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamata Avalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesha Nijesu Teja Swayam Kiyat Prakatiyata Pitad Vatatra Brahmaya Isa Jagaranda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbhadvande Pranamasamaye Sangradi Raja Vignam Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yagni Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisasya Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksaresa Savita Sagaragrana Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sutayastapam Sid Brahmati Kita Patakavatyasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakatampa Bhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrendra Gopa Matavendra Ospakarma Bandhana Rupa Falavajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kintu Chabakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Sarja Pranayadi Biti Vatsaya Moha Gurgora Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadvishim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpatarava Druma Bhumi Vinishchintamani Kanama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apibam Sipriyasa Kichiranandam Jyoti Param Apitadas Svadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Vihisravadi Suravi Vyastu Sumahan Nimesa Dakyo Vavra Jitina Yatra Pisamaya Bajay Swita Dvivam Tamaham Ihukogulakam Ityam Vidantaste Santakshiti Viralacharaka Tipa Guru Vastika prayers, Kijay. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Out from my respectful base unto lotus feet is such spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing, playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the melodies of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Out from my respectful basis unto lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other ceremonial worship of the Lord. Out from my respectful basis unto lotus feet is such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyze that which is liquid, drunk, and substance. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. Over my respectful basis unto lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. Over my respectful basis unto lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tastes of arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. From a most humble basis unto lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the spiritual Lord, spiritual Lord, because he's most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember to praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Verse number 28. Nidanam upagate surishni bhogeshva adhirata uttapa yutapesu mukaya satu katam avasista udavoyad Dadirapi tat yaja akirtim tyadisaha. Raja Uvacha. The king inquired, Nidanam, destruction, Upagatesu, having overtaken, Vrishni, of the Vrishni dynasty, Bogeshu, the Boga dynasty, Adirata, great commander, Utapa, commander-in-chief, Utapesu, amongst them, Mukhya, prominent, Sa, he, too, only, Katam, how, Avasista, remained, Udava, Yat, whereas, Harir, the personality of Godhead, Api, also, Tatyaje, finished, Akirtim, complete pastimes, Triadisa, the Lord of the three worlds. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The king inquired, at the end of the pastimes of the Lord of the three worlds, Sri Krishna, and after the disappearance of the members of the Vrishni and Bhoja dynasties, who were the best of the great commanders? Why did Uddhava alone remain? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Nidanam means the transcendental abode of the Lord. Ni means the highest, and Danam means opulence. And because the abode of the Lord is the highest manifestation of transcendental opulence, His abode can therefore be called Nidanam. Apart from the grammatical elucidation, the real purpose of the word Nidanam is to indicate that all the members of the Vrishni and Bhoja dynasties were direct associates of the Lord, and after the end of His pastimes, all the associates were dispatched to their respective positions in the transcendental abode. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura elucidates the meaning of Akirtim as pastimes. Means complete, and Kirtim means transcendental pastimes. Since the Lord is identical with His transcendental body, there is no question of His changing or quitting His body. To act in accordance with the rules and customs of the material world, the Lord seems to take His birth or leave His body, but the pure devotees of the Lord know well the actual fact. It is necessary, therefore, for the serious students of the Srimad Bhagavatam to follow the notes and comments of the great acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanatha Chakravarti. To others who are not devotees of the Lord, the comments and explanations of such acharyas may appear to be grammatical jugglery, but to the students who are in the line of disciplic succession, the explanations of the great acharyas are quite fit. The word upagatesu is also significant. All the members of Vrishni and Bhoja directly reach the abode of the Lord. Other devotees do not reach the abode of the Lord directly, but the pure devotees, or the pure associates of the Lord, have no attraction for the opulence of any planets of the material world. Sometimes, due to inquisitiveness, devotees who are to be promoted to the abode of the Lord have some attraction for the opulence of the higher material planets above the earth, and thus they desire to see them while going up to the perfection. But the Vrishnis and Bhojas were directly dispatched because they had no attraction for material planets, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also suggests that according to the Amara Kosha dictionary, Akirti also means signal. Lord Krishna ordered Uddhava to signal to go to Badarik Ashrama after his departure, and Uddhava, as a pure devotee of the Lord, carried out the order more faithfully than going back to Godhead, or the abode of the Lord. That was the cause of his remaining alone, even after the departure of the Lord from the face of the earth. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The king inquired, at the end of the pastimes of the Lord of the three worlds, Sri Krishna, and after the disappearance of the members of the Vrishni and Bhoja dynasty, who were the best of the great commanders, why did Uddhava alone remain? Go to Premanandi Haribol. So, why did he remain? Why did Uddhava remain in the material world? Because he was 100%, 101, 150% surrendered to the dictation of the Lord. That is the sign of a pure devotee. He doesn't question the Lord, he follows the Lord's instructions. And when he realizes the Lord is emphasizing something, he picks up on it right away, and he or she picks up on it right away, and then dutifully follows the instruction, even though it may seem that they're in a disadvantage because the others are going back to Godhead, and Uddhava in this case is going to Badarik Ashram, which is in the material world. But it's to get higher association. So, but Uddhava is not attached to anything except Krishna's instructions. So that is the sign of number one first-class devotee. This is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, where it says concerning the dictation of the Lord. And it begins in the 5th chapter, verse number, let's see. Yeah, it's in the beginning of the 5th chapter. And it says, Yoga Yukta Visuddhatma Vijitatma Chitendriya Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Apina Libyate. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him, though always working. Such a man or such a person is never entangled. So, in the purport, it says, a man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the 2nd chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order, dresses meaning their bodies, were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting in the battle of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. So this, let's call it absolute allegiance to Krishna and following exactly what Krishna is demanding is the symptom of the devotee. And Vidura was a an example of such a surrendered devotee. Okay, so when we make a decision to follow whatever Krishna says, that's the beginning of our spiritual life. And that's the end of our spiritual life also. In other words, Krishna's instructions mean everything to the devotee, and he doesn't want to deviate from them. So, therefore, it's always imperative to have this conviction that following Krishna's instructions is the highest level of Krishna consciousness, and that is what we should aspire for. Okay, so then in the Bhagavad Gita, third chapter, 30th verse, more information is given about the culture of a pure devotee as opposed to a culture of someone who has mixed desires. In other words, a person who has mixed desires is attracted to certain things in the material world and is also trying to follow Krishna consciousness, but their Krishna consciousness is shadowed by those attractions to the material world. And therefore it says, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirasir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vikatajvara. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, and with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy. Lethargy means laziness. Fight. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains, this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties, and as if in military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. There it is right there. Subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Lord without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetas. Nirasi means that one has to act on the order of the master but should not expect fruitive results. The cashier, there's an example of this. The cashier, in other words, the bank cashier or the bank teller, may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mai, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become Vigata Jwara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy or laziness. So this is the example of Uddhava. Everybody else is going back to Godhead, but he's requested to stay in the material world and go to Badarik Ashram. And he does not hesitate to follow that order. Although it seems as if that order is less important than what's going to be awarded to the Vrishnis and the Bhoja dynasties. But actually, it's the real essence of Krishna consciousness, following strictly the order of the Lord. And the key is the last verses, Yujyasva Vigatachvara. Vigatachvara means without feverish mentality or lethargy. So that means without being attacked by dualities. Oh, should I do this or should I do that, etc. He acted immediately and without hesitation followed the order of the Lord. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation. Let's say, I remember when I was a kid and I was working in my family's store, one of my brothers taught me how to sweep properly. And when he, like for example, if there's a lot of dust or light particles on the floor, if you sweep very fast, it'll go up into the air, right? So my brother told me, sprinkle some water on it, and that way nothing will go up. Everything will stay on the ground. You won't start breathing in all that dust. So I thought, wow, that's really a good strategy. And so whenever I would sweep and there was a lot of dusty dirt on the ground, I would sprinkle with water, and it would collect the dust without the dust going up in the air. When you sweep real fast, it'll go up into the air. So I enjoyed sweeping after my brother taught me that, because I thought, now I will not get any dust in my lungs. So actually, when we follow the Lord's order, it's like that. Everything becomes a pleasant experience because the Lord's order, even though it seems to be very stern and challenging, the Lord becomes our helper and guides us through all these challenging, difficult services. And then Krishna says, Ye me matam idam nityam anutistanti manava shadavanto nasuyanto muchyante tepi karma bihi. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions. Injunction is like a serious dictate that you must do this, right? And who follow the teaching faithfully, without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. So if you want to become free from karma, you must follow Krishna's instructions. Just like 5,000 years ago, Krishna said that one should give up meat eating, gambling and speculation, intoxication, and illicit sex. Today, those four things have become part of the culture of America. And because of that, there is a carnage, a holocaust of death of people who violate those four self-destructive habits. And so we see 5,000 years ago, Krishna cautioned us, and he gave what's called a caveat, C-A-V-E-A-T. You should look that word up. Caveat is like a warning and an order at the same time. But yet, nobody listens to it today. And when I say nobody, a majority of people in the United States don't listen to that. They consider those four things necessary for happiness in their life. Right? And what are they rewarded with? Sickness, mental anxiety, and mental breakdown, and death. Right? And you'll see all the statistics of that at the Ananda Mela Festival. So, it says, the injunction, okay, what does it say? Caveat?
A warning or
There it is, warning. Right?
or proviso of specific stipulations, conditions or limitations.
Yeah, whenever Krishna says, don't do this, that's a limitation. But on the other hand, it says, don't do this, but do that. So he says, don't engage in these 4 self-destructive activities, but engage in the self-realization activities of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, eating only Mahaprasadam, and regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and coming regularly to the temple, associating with devotees, and engaging in devotional service. If you do these 4 things, they will eventually eliminate any attraction to these 4 self-destructive activities, even though everybody around you is saying, oh, it's great to eat meat, you get protein, and you get so much energy. That, of course, is not completely true. Or, oh, hey, this cocaine is so good, or this marijuana is so good, why don't you try it, right? Or, hey, you don't have to stay faithful to your wife. You can, cheat on her every once in a while. It gives you more enthusiasm to be with your wife. There are actually these female magazines in which the PhD females write essays like that or write articles like that. That it's good to cheat on your husband every once in a while. It'll increase your attraction to your husband. So all this is nonsense, of course. And then ultimately, intoxication, meat eating, gambling. Okay, so then it says, the injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. So look up the word injunction, I-N-J-U-N-C-T-I-O-N. It's not simply a suggestion, and it has more authority than a caveat. It's actually like saying, you have to do this. What does it say, injunction?
An authoritative warning or order.
Right. It's authoritative. A caveat is also authoritative, but it's a warning. But this is an injunction goes further. It's an order. You must do this. Right. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. The essence of all Vedic literature, right? All Vedic wisdom. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita, but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruit of action. These are people that write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. They're scholars. They've studied, they know how to speak, or they understand Sanskrit, right? But yet they don't have faith in Krishna. I met a person like that once. So he was teaching Bhagavad Gita all his life. He had disciples. He was not in ISKCON. He had his own little movement. And then when his eyes started going blind, and he became very, very angry at Krishna and rejected Krishna, right? And eventually he died. So he died more or less envying or angry at Krishna, even though he spent his whole life teaching Bhagavad Gita. Very interesting, you see. That means that although he was teaching in a perfunctory way, or In other words, mechanically, but he didn't actually be convinced of the validity of everything Krishna was saying. He was just doing it more or less as a living. And of course, he did make some money from his disciples who would give him regular dakshina. So, there are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruit of action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. Now, this is a most amazing statement. Let's hear it again. But an ordinary man, that's just like us, we're just ordinary people, with firm faith in the eternal injunctions means authoritative orders of the Lord, Krishna, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. It doesn't mean you go back to Godhead, but you become liberated from the laws of karma, which is a big step back to Godhead. Right? So even if you can't execute the orders, but you have faith in them. Now see, there are two examples. One example is, and I've saw this with my own eyes, it's a person who is a devotee, who is initiated, but at some point becomes disenchanted with Krishna consciousness, and in order to walk away without feeling guilty, they find a false criticism of Prabhupada or the teaching, and that gives them the license to walk away because they found something wrong with Krishna consciousness. Of course, there's nothing wrong with Krishna consciousness, but they artificially say, "Oh, this is a mistake." Just like today, there are many, not many, but there are a good number of devotees that want to sanitize Prabhupada's books from all statements that seem to be homophobic and misogynist. Right? So, they think that this is a great impediment to preaching Krishna consciousness. So they want to change Prabhupada's books, basically, right? And sanitize it of what they think are these type of negative things that Prabhupada said in his books. Of course, there's nothing negative about. In fact, I wrote an article once proving that those type of statements that they're referring to were not actually negative, and that is, I entitled the long article or essay, "Protecting Srila Prabhupada's Legacy." See? So, yeah, what is his legacy? His legacy is not homophobic statements or misogynist statements. His legacy is the truth about life, and that's why he repeated Krishna's words. He did not make up any of those words that he writes. They're all backed up by Shastric evidence. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Now, in a letter to a devotee lady named Ekayani, in 31st August 1971, Prabhupada wrote, "Anyone who desires to serve Krishna is liberated. What to speak of one who is actually engaged in devotional service?" So basically, that statement is the same as, "But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma." So, there are two examples. One is the person who completely believes that everything Krishna has said is the truth, but they're not able to follow everything, still they'll be liberated from the law of karma because they believe that it's true, right? And they have faith that it's true. And the other example is one who's been following Krishna consciousness for a long time, but becomes attracted to the material world. But in order to walk away from Krishna consciousness without being guilty, feeling guilty, they fabricate a criticism of Prabhupada or of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and that gives them the, let's say, the basis for walking away from Krishna consciousness. Aha, I found something wrong, right? So, but it's fabricated, and therefore there's a difference between a person who cannot follow everything that Krishna says, but has faith that it's true, and the person who wants to leave Krishna consciousness for sense gratification and makes up a phony excuse to make them feel comfortable about walking away. But then the next verse says, Ye tvetad abhyasuyanto nanutistanti mematam sarvagyana vimudam stan vidinastan achetasaha. But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. And Prabhupada says the flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, meaning the President of the United States or the government of the United States, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman or Paramatma and the Personality of Godhead due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him or for her. So a vacant heart, what does that mean? There's no love of Krishna in the heart. So such a person is going to have a lot of difficulties in life because they will give themselves the license to commit sinful activities and not feel guilty about it, right? To justify it in some way or other in their mixed up mind. So these are, let's say, unfortunate people. But unfortunately, that there are many people like that. They have to find an excuse, just like they found an excuse to abort children in a massive way in 1962 or 63. How did they do that? Well, it was the camaraderie of politicians and scientists. When you connect those two, there's something really dangerous going to happen. So the scientists, and previously the scientists and the politicians united, and what was the production of that unitedness? The atomic bomb. And they threw the atomic bomb on the Japanese, 2 of them, and killed hundreds and thousands of Japanese people, not only with the explosion of the bomb, but with the radiation that came after it. So, and then in the 1960s, the scientists and the politicians got together and figured out how they could justify killing helpless fetuses and children, right? And they did it. The scientists came up and said, well, you can't say that the fetus is a person. Why? Because it hasn't come out of the womb yet. Therefore, and the politician said, well, that's right, because if it's not out of the womb, it's not protected by the Constitution of the United States because it's not a person yet. So, with all this word jugglery and what you call sophistry, look that one up, S-O-F-I-S-T-R-Y, sophistry. What's it say? Basically, it's lying propaganda or lying. Yes, fallacious arguments with the intention of deceiving. That's exactly what the scientists and the politicians did. And then they justified killing over 1 million babies every year since 1960, I think it's 1963, up until 2022, when they have adjusted it somewhat to diminish the wholesale killing. It hasn't been eliminated, but it's been it's up to each state to decide whether they're going to have abortions and pay for abortions. Abortions have been done throughout history, but not with the government paying for it. So that was the new thing in 1960s. Right? 1960s, the government accepted the responsibility to pay for abortions, not only in America, all over the world. They pay for it in other countries also. So, and that's what has been stopped. Okay. So, the flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein, as there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and Personality of Godhead due to a vacant heart. So what does it mean? He is a disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self. That means he doesn't accept that he has an eternal soul and that there's God who's also eternal. He thinks he's just a body, and he's waiting for the scientists to find a cure for death, right? Well, he's going to die way before the scientists find that cure. In fact, the scientists are not going to find a cure because it's impossible to stop birth, death, old age, and disease as long as one's eternal soul identifies with the temporary material body. So people begin to believe in something that's impossible. And they're so crazy, they accept these ridiculous ideas of being frozen right at the moment of death with the hope that in the future, when the scientists solve the problem of death, they can be unfrozen and zapped by, I don't know, maybe a vaccine made in Wuhan or something that's going to free them from dying. Of course, that's not true. If you get frozen, when you get thawed out, you're not going to be alive, no matter whatever they do to you. You see. So these are all crazy ideas that people have to make money and to give false hope to the materialists who want to live eternally in the body. You cannot live eternally in a material body. You can live eternally in your spiritual body. But they preclude that by saying, well, there's no, I mean, this belief in God, it's all mythology. It's all, feel-good stuff with no scientific basis. As if science is, the holy grail of American culture or European culture. Look that word up, holy grail. H-O-L-Y and then G-R-A-I-L. So here we see people believing things that are absolutely categorically false. What is that? That is a formula for failure in life. What does it say, Holy Grail?
It's the meaning of the grail, and its noun is called Holy Grail, but it's a thing that is being earnestly pursued or sought after.
Sought after.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Holy Grail is a biblical phrase referring to the either the shroud that was put on Jesus and has
So it's
it's like a picture of him.
They said that the cup or platter used by Jesus at the Last Supper.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's the cup or platter. Right?
Yeah.
It's not the shroud. Okay, yeah. So everybody's been looking for the Holy Grail for the last 2,000 years, right?
And a little bit in which Joseph of Armenia received Christ's blood at the cross. Blah blah blah. I said something.
Yeah, there was a king of Armenia at that time. Armenia at that time was a very powerful country. Its power extended right up to what's today Israel and Jerusalem. And this king had complete faith in Jesus. Although he had never seen him, but he heard about him, he had complete faith. And so supposedly he was able to drink some of the blood of Jesus, right? And that is the whole purpose of the Eucharist in the Orthodox and Catholic Church and in some Protestant churches. They lift this a vessel, looks like a golden cup or something, and they say that at a certain point in their liturgy, or the ceremony that they perform every Sunday, the wine in that cup is transformed into the blood of Jesus, and a little bit of a wafer that they dip into it has been transformed into his flesh. And this is prasadam in Christianity. It used to be like prasadam that we have, but they reduced it to the cup of wine and the wafer. The wafer is unleavened bread. And they break it up into little pieces, and they dip it in the so-called blood of Jesus, and they put it in the mouth of people, and that's called, they're getting the communion. They're communing with Jesus by tasting his blood. So that was started by this Armenian king who never saw Krishna, but he had Jesus, but he had complete faith that Jesus was the Son of God or whatever. Okay, that's very interesting. Read that again. So Holy Grail is something that is
Actually, yes.
supernatural,
Yeah.
and everyone is seeking. Go ahead, read it again.
So to begin with, it says that in a parenthesis, in medieval legend, the cup or platter used by Jesus at the Last Supper, and in which Joseph of Armenia received Christ's blood at the cross, quest for it and undertaken by medieval knights are described in the versions of the Arthurian legends written from
Arthurian legends, that means there was King Arthur of England, and he had these knights, these warriors, right? And they claim, I think, that they found the Holy Grail,
Mhm.
and that was the source of all their power. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh,
And then
that's pretty much it. I think they said.
Okay.
And
Did you ever know this? It's not exactly, well, you can't really know if it's absolutely true or not, but it was claimed by King Arthur and his knights that they actually found it. Found the cup and the plate that Jesus used at the Last Supper. Okay, what time is it? Yeah. Okay, so are there any questions?
so Maharaj, in the last verse we read about like a person
Yeah.
having complete faith and always follow the injunctions, he definitely will get the liberation or whatever he's.
Even if he doesn't follow everything.
Yeah, even if he doesn't follow anything. So, what category of people like that? I mean, he doesn't willing to follow, or he doesn't. I mean, faith definitely. He will follow
He's
to some
weak.
extent.
He's weak.
Okay, weak. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
For some-
he's not convinced completely. No, he's convinced. He believes everything that's being said by Krishna and the devotees, but he's weak. He still has strong attachments. And he can't muster up, it's a nice word, muster up the conviction to follow strictly. But if he continues associating with devotees and hearing the classes and taking prasadam, going on Sankirtan, he will eventually develop the firm faith to follow. But in the beginning, we're all weak in the beginning. But if we follow this process, there's actually 5 things that you must do every day that's recommended by Lord Chaitanya. One is to chant Hare Krishna, minimum 16 rounds a day, good rounds, and preferably early in the morning, in the Brahma Muhurta period, 3 hours before sunrise. And then secondly, to always hear on a regular basis Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? And third, to associate with devotees. And fourth is to only accept prasadam. And fifth is to engage in deity worship. So if you do those 5 things every day, you will be Krishna conscious. Okay. All right. So the one last point I want to just make. In the 6th chapter, 7th verse. Let's see what it says here. 6th chapter, 7th. Yeah. So, 6th chapter, 6th verse says, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. And it says, one who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. So, this we see when a child is growing up, they have to follow what their mother and father say, especially in their younger period, like up to around 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They don't have any choice. They have to follow what the parents say. So they're following the dictation of a superior. Now, when you go to school, again, you're following the dictation of a superior, like your teacher or the principal of the school, right? And then when you get a job, you're following the dictation of your team leader or the CEO of the company, right? And when you get married, the husband tries to dictate to the wife what she should do, or the wife tries to dictate to the husband what he should do. You're following the order of a superior, you see. And if you have a father or a grandfather, you usually have to listen to what they say also, right? So we see we're always following the order of some superior. Now, someone says, oh, not me, I don't listen to what anybody says. Well, yeah, now they're following the order of lust, anger, and greed, you see. So we're always following the order of someone, whether it's lust, anger, and greed, or people that are so-called have more authority than we do, and we have to act under their authority. So one who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. Yeah, if you join the army, you have no choice. You have to follow your superiors. Right? As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice or greed, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. So you see, he mentioned the word dictation 1, 2, 3, 4 times there in a couple sentences. And then the next verse says, in the purport, actually every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by the superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, one has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma or Supersoul. Okay, so look how many times he's using the word dictation, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in not even a full paragraph. So, and that's our constitutional position. That means that's the way we are made. We always follow some superior's dictation. And if there's no person, we're following the superior dictation of lust, anger, and greed, the 3 doors to hell. Okay, so thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Now, when we do devotional service within the limited time,
Yes.
is there a list of devotional services that we can do as a priority?
As what?
As a priority.
Priority, yes.
Like for example, helping in the kitchen or
Whatever you accept as service from a superior, like Rasavati. She said, "Oh, Prabhu, can you help me?" She doesn't order you. She always asks politely, but it's basically an order. And you say, "Yes, of course, Mataji, I will help you." So that's taking dictation from a superior.
then when we have a conflict in the requests, how do a devotee should follow? Which one to take up?
You follow the senior devotee. So if Mataji says, "Oh, Prabhu, can you help me?" And then along comes mean Hari Vilas and says, "Prabhu, I told you to do this." So you have to follow the superior. Just like there was Narada Muni, and he was preaching to youngsters, teenagers, and there was this one young boy who was going to be king, and he was ready to become king of the whole universe, actually, Priyavata. And Narada Muni convinced him to become a brahmacharya and not become the king. And then the father complained, and he complained to Brahma. And then Brahma said to Narada, he says, this is wrong. He said, that boy should become the king. And that way the father can retire and take up spiritual life. And the boy can manage the whole universe. So the boy looked at Narada, and Narada said, yes, you must do that. Why? Because Brahma was Narada's superior. It's his guru. So you have to follow the superior authority.
In the absence of knowing who is superior, how should we judge our actions?
How can you not know who's superior? You will know.
Okay.
If Mataji tells you to do something, and I come and say, no, I told you to do this other thing, You have to follow that. If you don't follow it, you're being disobedient.
Okay.
You will always know who is the superior authority. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
Haribol. Any other questions? Okay, we'll stop right there. Thank you. So today is a big day. We set up the whole Ananda Mela displays and kitchen. So we're going to need your help. If you're working, right after work, you should come and help out. I'm going to go right now. Haribol.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandhu Muhi Savadana Mate Mate Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Chitete Koriya Kya Arena Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati Je prasade pure sarva asha चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जाहा हईते अविद्या विनाश जायते वेदे गाय जहारा चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदमा जनर बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पादा छाया ए बेजास गोशेक त्रिभुवाना
Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Eti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Dishatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Nityananda, Nityananda, Yadvaita, Gadadara Shiva Sadi, Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema animates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing this character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give it the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds.